I want you to picture something for a second. Picture the classic corporate career ladder.
Right, the one we all know.
Exactly. We all know the drill, right? You get an entry-level job, you put in your time, you climb a rung, you wait a few years, you demonstrate competence to your boss, and eventually, you climb another rung. It has literally been the defining metaphor of professional success for generations.
It really has.
But here is the bombshell reality we are unpacking today. That ladder is structurally dead.
Completely dead.
It is totally collapsed. Yet somehow, organizations are still actively trying to sell you the climb.
Yeah, and it's because the physical infrastructure of how work actually gets done has changed fundamentally. But the psychological infrastructure, the promises companies make to employees during the hiring process, they just haven't updated to match that new reality.
Wow.
We are operating under a completely obsolete social contract.
And that disconnect, that's the mission of today's deep dive. We are looking at a really fascinating, thoroughly detailed article by Jonathan H. Westover, Ph.D.
It's a great piece.
It is. It's titled, "The Architecture of Work is Collapsing. Most organizations are still building ladders." And we are going to explore exactly why this traditional workplace structure is imploding right now.
Right, and look at the massive difference between organizations handling this collapse poorly versus the ones actually doing it right.
Absolutely. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how you, the listener, can navigate this massive shift in your own career.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Looking at the modern workplace right now, it's almost like looking at a phantom limb.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Right. Organizations are feeling the ghost of a structural hierarchy that simply isn't there anymore.
Yeah, they're feeling the itch of a management layer that was eliminated like 3 years ago. And they're still trying to run approvals through a chain of command that no longer exists.
That's crazy.
It is. But to figure out how to fix this workplace, we first have to understand the nuts and bolts of how and why that old architecture broke. Because this was not some gradual generational shift.
No, not at all.
The data shows a sudden structural failure.
Yeah, the numbers in the research paint a pretty stark picture. According to Gallup data, between 2013 and 2025, the average manager's span of control, which is basically just the number of direct reports they are responsible for, went from 8.2 up to 12.1.
That is massive.
Right. That is nearly a 50% increase in team size for a single manager in just over a decade.
And here's the kicker. While their teams were expanding by 50%, the actual nature of the manager's job was shifting right under their feet.
How so?
Well, the research shows managers are now spending 46% of their time doing what's called individual contributor work, or IC work.
Wait, really? Almost half their time?
Almost half. That means instead of providing leadership or strategy or, coaching their team, they are actually down in the trenches, doing the coding, writing the reports, building the spreadsheets right alongside their team.
So they are basically just another worker bee for half the week?
Exactly. So if you imagine a manager named Sarah, she isn't really managing her team of 12. She's frantically doing her own mountain of tasks, and then she's trying to squeeze in performance reviews or strategic planning on her commute home.
Gosh, that sounds exhausting.
Which completely explains why manager engagement is dropping faster than any other segment of the workforce right now. Their roles have become structurally impossible.
Just mathematically.
Yes. The scope of the job mathematically exceeds the available hours in a week. But what's fascinating here is the deeper, more systemic issue. It's a concept the article calls structural gaslighting.
Yes, that phrase really stood out in the text, and it perfectly captures the frustration so many people are feeling right now. What does that actually mean in practice?
So, structural gaslighting happens when a company's stated career architecture promises vertical progression. The company tells you, hey, if you hit these targets, you will move up to the next title.
The classic ladder.
Right. But the actual daily reality of the work demands horizontal skills. It demands cross-functional collaboration and a really high tolerance for ambiguity.
I see.
This creates a severe psychological contract violation. The employee is busting their back preparing for vertical progression, but they constantly hit horizontal requirements.
It's totally like playing a video game, where the developers completely changed the physics engine overnight, but they left the old tutorial in place.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like you were frantically pressing the jump button because the manual literally told you that is how you climb to the next level.
Right, but the game now requires you to swim to survive.
Exactly. You are applying the exact right input based on the rules you were given, but you are still drowning.
And the absolute tragedy of that scenario is that your high performers are often the ones who get most heavily penalized.
Really? Why the high performers?
Because the people who succeeded over the last 10 years did so because they mastered those old vertical skills. Things like navigating complex approval chains or managing a very specific, narrow departmental scope.
Oh, I get it.
Suddenly, they face this competence crisis. Their old climbing skills no longer predict success in a flat organization.
Yeah.
So they get frustrated, they feel betrayed, and eventually they just quit.
So who actually changed the physics engine here? Because the sources point out that this isn't some post-pandemic fad or, a temporary glitch in the matrix.
No, not at all. What's fascinating here is that it is a permanent architectural collapse, and it was caused by a collision of three massive forces happening all at once.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, artificial intelligence is automating the basic coordination tasks that used to require entire layers of human middle managers.
Makes sense.
Second, intense economic cost pressures are forcing companies to trim their budgets by actively eliminating those layers.
Right, the economic squeeze.
And third, the market just demands operational speed. Traditional, multi-layered approval chains, where a single document needs 5 signatures, they are simply too slow to survive in the current economy.
Which really brings us to a critical fork in the road for this deep dive. Organizations know the ladder is broken, right?
Yeah.
And they are reacting by flattening out their hierarchy. But the research highlights two very different ways companies are compressing their structures.
Yeah. And the difference is massive.
One method completely destroys value, and the other actually creates it. Let's talk about the bad one first.
So the destructive path is what the article calls cost-driven delayering.
Okay.
This is your classic knee-jerk reaction. A company simply chops out middle management to save on payroll. And unfortunately, it is overwhelmingly the most common approach.
Just cutting heads to save cash.
Exactly. There was a 2024 Work Human analysis of Fortune 500 restructurings, and they found that 78% of these reorganizations explicitly cited cost reduction as the goal.
Wow, 78%.
Yeah, while only 31% cited process redesign.
I am struggling with this part, though. I have to push back a little. Logically, if you cut out middle management, shouldn't that inherently make decisions faster?
You would think so.
Like you were taking out a layer of bureaucracy. You're removing the red tape. The people actually doing the work should be able to just, move forward.
It's completely illogical to assume that. You would think removing a layer speeds things up, but it actually creates the exact opposite effect. And it's because of the paradox of authority ambiguity.
Authority ambiguity.
Okay, imagine a company removes an entire layer of vice presidents to save money. But they never update the internal policies to explicitly reassign who has the actual authority to sign vendor contracts or approve the purchase of new software.
Oh, man. So the paperwork gets to where the vice president used to be, and there's just an empty chair.
Literally an empty chair.
Nobody knows who's legally allowed to say yes.
Exactly. So a decision that used to take 3 days in a clear, albeit slow, hierarchy now takes 3 weeks.
This is just bouncing around in the dark.
Yes. Coordination completely fragments. Everyone gets stuck in endless cross-functional meetings trying to figure out who actually owns the risk of making the call.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is, and the financial impact of this ambiguity is severe. The data shows companies experience an 8 to 12% productivity decline in the year following this type of cost-driven restructuring.
Which probably wipes out the payroll savings entirely, right?
Almost always. It's a complete false economy.
So if chopping blindly just to save a buck backfires that badly, organizations must be realizing the math doesn't work. Are there companies actually redesigning this properly before they just start handing out pink slips?
Yes, absolutely. The alternative is called capability-driven compression.
Capability-driven compression.
Right. And this completely flips the order of operations. You redesign your work systems around new technology, specifically AI first.
Okay, so tech first.
You figure out what administrative load the technology can actually handle, and then based on that new capacity, you evaluate how many layers of management you actually need.
So the reduction in layers becomes a natural consequence of the redesign, not the primary objective.
Precisely. It's an outcome, not a goal.
But the sources issue a really huge warning about skipping steps here. There is a crazy statistic from Zenger-Folkman showing a 64% failure rate for executives who are promoted through multiple compressed passages.
Yeah, 64% is brutal.
Like if you take a junior manager and launch them straight into a functional leadership role just because the middle layers are gone, they just crash.
They fail because they didn't get the structured experience the old ladder used to provide. I mean, think about it. That ladder wasn't just pure bureaucracy.
Right.
It gave people a chance to practice complexity in a safe, contained way over a period of years. You learn how to manage a budget, then you learn how to manage a small department, then a larger one.
Step by step.
Exactly. If you just yank the rungs out and ask them to jump a massive gap, they fall.
So if we know that cutting layers blindly creates chaos, how do organizations successfully execute this capability-driven compression? The sources point to a massive first pillar here, which is completely rethinking the concept of supervision through artificial intelligence.
Yes. We have to separate what the algorithm is good at from what the human brain is good at.
Okay.
AI is phenomenal at administrative coordination, scheduling, reading project tickets, assigning tasks based on workload, tracking progress, monitoring resource capacity.
All the tedious stuff.
Exactly. Those are highly automatable functions.
The analogy that comes to mind here, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that AI isn't replacing the manager's brain.
Right.
It is replacing the manager's clipboard. It is taking over all the tracking and tallying, like an invisible, tireless administrative assistant.
I love that, replacing the clipboard. Because the human manager is still desperately needed, but their role shifts entirely. They move to providing strategic direction, making really complex trade-off decisions, and focusing on human motivation.
The stuff a machine can't do.
Right. AI cannot deliver nuanced career coaching, and it certainly cannot navigate the complex interpersonal dynamics of a team in conflict.
But when you take that clipboard away, when the AI handles all the administrative routing, the math of how many people a manager can supervise changes completely.
It transforms the math.
The research states a manager's viable team size can safely expand from that 8 to 10 range we talked about earlier, all the way up to 15 to 20 people.
Yes.
And there is actual proof this works. The MasterCard case study in the source material really illustrates how this plays out in the real world.
Oh, the MasterCard example is fantastic. So in 2023, MasterCard's tech organization deployed an AI platform that was specifically designed for task assignment and resource tracking.
Got it.
Rather than a manager spending 3 hours a day just checking developers' calendars and assigning coding bugs, the AI routed the work automatically based on capacity and skill sets.
Just totally eliminated the daily administrative grind.
Completely. And the human managers took all that freed up time and shifted their focus entirely to code quality, technical skill building, and actual career planning for their developers.
Wow. So what were the actual results of that?
The average span of control went from 9 direct reports up to 14.
That's a big jump.
Huge! And because they could handle more people safely, they naturally eliminated 2 entire management layers.
Naturally eliminated.
Yes. But development velocity held totally steady, and here's the best: part-timed promotion for top performers actually improved by 23%.
Wait, they removed layers, but people got promoted faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the managers finally had the bandwidth to mentor their high performers rather than just acting as glorified schedule checkers for the whole department.
That is incredible. But okay, if AI allows a manager to successfully oversee 14 people instead of 9, simple math dictates there are just fewer management jobs available overall across the company.
Yes, there are fewer vertical slots.
So for the listener sitting at their desk right now, how do you actually advance your career and increase your salary if you literally can't climb up to the manager spot because it doesn't exist?
This is the most critical shift for the individual employee. We have to move our mindset away from vertical progression and toward horizontal capability development.
Horizontal development.
Right. In a compressed architecture, your value is created by broadening the range of problems you can solve across the company, not by the specific title you hold in one narrow department.
Which completely inverts how we traditionally think about compensating employees. I mean, the T-Mobile case study from 2022 really gets into the mechanics of this.
They did something really radical.
Yeah, they essentially abandoned traditional promotions. Instead, they built this matrix to measure capability and performance reviews. And it tracks 3 specific things: functional expertise, your breadth of business context, and your stakeholder management range.
To put that into perspective, think about that second one: business context. If you are a marketing manager, you don't necessarily get paid more just for becoming a senior marketing manager.
The title doesn't matter.
But if you can demonstrate that you understand how the supply chain works or how the enterprise sales division operates, you become measurably more valuable.
Because you see the whole board.
Exactly. You are rewarded for learning how different contexts fit together because, let's be real, a marketer who actually understands supply chain constraints is going to write much more profitable, realistic campaigns.
So they are literally paying for context. You get a raise for proving you can solve problems across multiple business units. You get paid for your horizontal range.
And it worked beautifully. T-Mobile eliminated 2 layers of management using this model. The average tenure of their high performers went up by 31%, and the time it took for an employee to become fully competent in a critical role dropped by 40%.
Wow.
They heavily incentivize people to learn the whole business, rather than just mastering their own individual silo.
But there's a major catch to rolling this out, which the Unilever case study demonstrated perfectly.
Oh, the transparency issue.
Exactly. If you are going to completely change the rules of the game from vertical to horizontal, you have to be overwhelmingly transparent about it. You can't just keep it in HR.
No, you can't. In 2023, Unilever launched a massive campaign called Careers Reimagined. They didn't just quietly change the HR policies and hope people figured it out eventually.
Right.
They explicitly communicated how the new horizontal system worked. They provided detailed roadmaps that contrasted the old vertical career paths directly against the new horizontal ones.
They literally showed their math to the entire company.
And following that communication campaign, 78% of their employees reported understanding exactly how to build a career in the new structure.
That's huge.
Compare that to just 31% in their previous restructurings where leadership tried to just, keep the changes quiet.
It's night and day. Think about your own daily routine for a second. Are you structuring your work just to get your boss's job? Or are you actively trying to learn how the finance department or the operations team functions?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
Because the research suggests only one of those strategies provides actual long-term job security.
It is a fundamental pivot in how we define professional growth.
I want to push back on the broader structure again, though. Okay, so we have fixed supervision by giving the administrative tasks to AI.
Right.
And we have fixed compensation by paying for horizontal skills instead of titles. But in a flattened organization, who is actually making the high-stakes decisions?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. If we flatten the structure and give junior people the power to make million-dollar vendor decisions, doesn't that just invite absolute chaos?
It feels like it should invite chaos. But the research on organizational decision-making shows something really counterintuitive here.
Okay.
Decision quality correlates strongly with 2 factors: your physical proximity to the relevant information and the frequency with which you make that specific type of decision.
Proximity and frequency.
Right. Quality does not correlate with hierarchical rank.
So a junior employee can systematically make a better call than the literal CEO of the company.
In their specific domain, absolutely yes. A junior procurement officer who evaluates and purchases software platforms every single week will make a vastly superior technical purchasing decision compared to a senior executive who only approves a software purchase like once a year.
Because they have reps.
Exactly. Expertise and frequency beat seniority every time.
Proximity over rank. The Mayo Clinic applied this exact logic to their hospital operations in 2023, didn't they?
They did. They shifted to what is called domain-based authority. In a clinical setting, they decided that the healthcare professional who is physically closest to the patient makes the operational call,
Regardless of seniority.
regardless of their seniority level. So they completely removed hierarchical approval process for clinical decisions.
Wow, they just completely removed it.
Exactly. They trusted the proximity of the expert actually in the room.
And the results of that shift are staggering. They dropped their administrative layers from 7 down to 4. Their clinical decision speed improved by 47%.
47% faster in a hospital setting is massive.
And patient safety remained completely intact. But if we were removing all these layers, how do we train the few leaders we actually do still need to promote?
That is the tricky part.
Because the old ladder gave them years to learn how to manage a budget or run a department.
Yeah.
Now we are just throwing them across this massive gap into senior roles. How do they not crash and burn?
You have to replace time-based weighting with what the research calls intensity-based development.
Intensity-based development.
Yeah. Since you no longer have 3 years of middle management to slowly train someone, you have to artificially induce that complexity in a heavily compressed time frame.
What does that actually look like in practice, though?
Consider Schneider Electric. In 2022, they needed to compress their commercial organization. But instead of throwing a regional manager into the deep end as a country leader and just hoping they learned how to swim.
Which we know fails 64% of the time.
Right. They created a 90-day passage acceleration program.
Like a high-stakes corporate boot camp.
It's exactly like a boot camp. It involved intensive simulations. The promoted managers had to run cross-functional project teams. They had to analyze P&L profit and loss statements under the strict supervision of a coach. And they received biweekly executive mentoring.
That is intense.
Schneider Electric essentially condensed the complexity that the old ladder would have provided over 3 years and packed it all into 90 days.
They built a safety net out of intense, concentrated experience. And their success rate for promoted executives in the compressed structure hit 91%, which was up from 67% before they implemented the program.
It works.
So we have a flattened, horizontally focused, AI-driven workplace. The decisions are fast, the compensation makes sense. But this brings up a major existential question.
What's that?
What is going to keep you, the listener, motivated to log in on a Monday morning if you aren't chasing a fancy new title for your LinkedIn profile?
Oh, that is such an important point. We have to fundamentally redesign the architecture of work around purpose. Yeah. We are shifting away from hierarchical meaning, which is the traditional idea that, I matter to this company because of my rank or my title.
Right.
And we are moving toward contribution meaning, the idea that I matter because of the specific problems I solve and the tangible human impact I create.
Meaning through contribution. The Kaiser Permanente case study was a brilliant illustration of how to engineer that exact feeling.
It really was. In 2023, Kaiser Permanente noticed that their administrative staff, these are the people handling billing, scheduling, paperwork, who had absolutely no direct patient contact, they were losing engagement in the flatter structure.
They felt totally disconnected from the mission.
Right. So Kaiser mandated that administrative staff spend 1 day a quarter physically sitting in clinical settings, just observing the real-world impact of the systems they run.
Just 1 day every 3 months.
That's it.
Yeah.
And they paired that with monthly summaries sent to the admin staff detailing patient outcomes. They gave them a direct, undeniable line of sight to the human impact of their spreadsheets and scheduling systems.
And it worked.
Engagement scores went up 28%, and administrative process speed increased by 41%. They achieved that massive jump simply by connecting daily mundane tasks to actual human outcomes.
That is amazing. If you want your people to care about the work, you have to show them why the work matters, not just where they sit on an org chart.
Absolutely.
But to survive long-term in this new reality, organizations can't just run one boot camp or one observation day and call it a success. The sources stress the need for continuous role redesign.
Because the technology is moving too fast, organizations need quarterly audits to see what new capabilities AI has developed and how human roles need to adapt to partner with it.
The partnership is key.
It is,
Yeah.
because right now the gap in AI-human partnership training is a massive liability. Less than 30% of employees who are actively using AI in their daily jobs have received any formal training on how to use it.
That is wild, which leads to what the researchers call a dangerous, uncritical acceptance of AI outputs. If you hand a manager this hyper-advanced AI engine that can route tasks instantly, but you don't provide the driver's training, they are either going to crash it or they're going to spend all day manually double-checking the AI's work anyway.
Which completely defeats the purpose of having the tool.
It's like giving someone the keys to a Formula One car, but only teaching them how to turn on the radio.
That's exactly what it is. You need systematic capability building. Organizations must train employees on effective prompting, how to interpret complex outputs, and most importantly, how to understand when to trust human judgment over the algorithm.
Right.
The companies that win the next decade won't just buy the AI software. They will train the human to be the senior partner in that relationship.
Okay, let's bring all these threads together. The traditional career ladder hasn't just lost a few rungs. The underlying physics of the workplace have completely changed, and the vertical structure has collapsed.
It's gone.
But as the data shows, that is not necessarily a bad thing. If organizations embrace capability-driven compression, if they use AI to eliminate the administrative clipboard, and if they reward horizontal context over vertical titles, the daily experience of work can become vastly more meaningful and efficient.
It is a massive opportunity for systemic redesign, provided we are willing to just let go of the old vertical metaphor entirely.
As you head into your next workday, or sit down for your next career planning conversation, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Imagine your organization eliminated your current title tomorrow, but they kept you on payroll. What unique combination of horizontal skills, understanding of different business contexts, and broad stakeholder relationships could you offer that a traditional vertical climber simply couldn't?
That's a great question.
In this new architecture of work, your career security isn't about how high you have climbed. It is entirely about how wide and deep your foundation is.
Build the foundation, skip the ladder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.